It's official. The Rangers are cutting ties with Bally. On today's show, we'll break down what that means, what's next, and how it's going to impact the Rangers this free agency. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan, covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into what this TV nonsense means for the Rangers, this episode of Locked On Rangers is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today. Now, yesterday it was announced that MLB will be taking over the broadcasts of 3 new teams. It was already broadcasting 3 teams at this season: the Padres, Rockies, and Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, the Guardians, Brewers, and Twins will be joining the team's broadcast, specifically by Major League Baseball, due to this fallout with Bally Sports, with Diamond Sports Group, with whatever entity you choose to call it. Diamond Sports Group is the conglomerate, the parent company of Bally Sports Southwest and Bally Sports South and East and North, whatever, however many Bally's directional regional sports networks there are. Diamond Sports is the company that owns them all, and they have been filing for bankruptcy. They have been in all of these different hearings. There have been all kinds of mess surrounding this, and the Rangers, why this matters to them is that MLB will at this point not be taking over the Rangers broadcast. The Rangers did officially cut ties with Bally. There was a contract offer for next year extended to where if the Rangers wanted to take it, it was less money than they were expecting, less money than was originally on their deal, which I think was around $110 or $120 million a year. This year, they were around $20 million short of what they were expecting in their original deal, because Bally is having all of these issues, because everyone is dropping Bally, because they just clearly, as a company, have not known what they're doing. But there are a few different options that the Rangers will have next year. I think what's most likely and in the long term most viable is that they will end up starting their own regional sports network. Now, that will take a lot of money to get things off the ground, to get, all the costs that will be involved in that. And I think it will be a difficult thing to do at first, which is why I'm not 100% sure that it's happening. Or the Rangers could look at a few different ways to go about it. There have been other teams in the area, Bally Sports Southwest locally. There's not going to be much going on there for the next few years outside of their coverage of high school football, and we'll see how much even that is going to keep going moving forward. But the Mavs, the Stars, and now the Rangers, the big 3 in Bally's pocket, are now gone. Their ties are officially severed. Now, in terms of owning your own regional sports network, there's not a whole lot of teams that do it, because it takes a lot of money. It takes a big market. It takes a big team. In terms of Major League Baseball, there really aren't that many teams that do it. It includes the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Mets, the Cubs, the Dodgers. And as of this past year, I believe it started in October, the Astros with Space City Network. They partnered with the Rockets, the other team that was with, I believe it was AT&T Sports Southwest at the end. It had a few different names, but basically those 2 teams combined to buy out the existing regional sports network and form their own, where they have more control, where they have more say, more leeway in what's going on with that entity, which I think is where a lot of teams will be trying to move. It's where I thought that maybe the 3 teams here locally that were with Bally would maybe combine to form some kind of conglomerate. But so far, that hasn't been the case, and it's looking like it's not going to be the case because of what's happened with Victory Plus, with the Stars, and with the Tegna deal with the Mavs. But let's look at these teams and how they stack up in terms of why it's significant. Because these teams are the ones that are spending all the money. That's why it matters. Not only that, but also getting games into homes of fans, making it available for them to watch. These teams are good. Almost all of these teams that own their regional sports network, they have been mostly good. Outside of the Cubs and the Red Sox, everybody else made the playoffs. These rich teams made the playoffs. Spending money is a good thing. That's a whole different point. But spending money on your own regional sports network that will allow you to spend more money on good baseball players, that's a significant thing. I mean, in terms of teams that are in the top payroll, I'm surprised the Braves haven't done this so far. In terms of the total tax payroll right now, they're the fourth highest spending team. Fifth highest is Philly. Sixth highest is Houston. Funny how there was all that narrative last year about how, all these teams that are, the top three didn't make the playoffs. All three with the most expensive rosters didn't make the playoffs. But this year, top six most expensive rosters all made the playoffs. Top six highest tax payrolls all made the playoffs. But I mean, Mets, Dodgers, Yankees, Red Sox, Houston, Chicago. I mean, these teams are top dollar. They are spending top dollar in free agency for the most part. Red Sox could be stepping up a lot more than they are. But still, the investment in the team, the investment moving forward, the investment of just getting your games in front of people, in front of your fans, making it accessible. That's something that I think is necessary. It needs to be paramount for everyone in Major League Baseball. I think it's one of the things that Rob Manfred is working the hardest on, outside of also moving the A's to Las Vegas. Outside of that, I think this is something that Rob Manfred's legacy is going to be about, is how can he end blackouts? How can he get these games into as many homes as possible? And there have been some potential hurdles. I mean, some difficulties. I think that of these options, long-term viability, I think that makes the most sense of the Rangers just having control, doing what they want with it. I think they would probably run it a little bit better. I think most people would run it a little bit better than what Bally has been doing as of late. But I think in the short term, it's going to be difficult. There's going to be a lot of upfront costs. It's going to be maybe another season where the Rangers are, not big spenders in free agency, where they miss out on some guys because of this. And if Bally gave the Rangers one good thing, one nice thing, it was missing out on Josh Hader. This is what Josh Hader said back in February after signing with the Astros. He was on foul territory. He said, I think that the biggest thing for them is the TV deal. I'm not behind their finances or anything like that. That's what was stopping them from making moves, I guess. We're just here to win the World Series, and Houston was the team that showed us they're all in for that opportunity, and they've done it. Well, alas, thankfully, they didn't do it, and Josh Hader very much didn't do it in these playoffs. It was definitely someone the Rangers were eyeing. I think that the Bally deal was clearly a big reason why Jordan Montgomery didn't get signed until very, very late. I thought it was an obvious move, an obvious fit with the Rangers. But alas, that didn't happen. Didn't have the best season either if the Rangers waited till the last minute to sign him. Like the Diamondbacks did. Maybe he would have had an equally bad year here with Texas as he did with Arizona. I don't know. But this is something that is going to make a big, big impact. Coming up, we're going to talk about what the Rangers can learn from what the Mavs and the Stars have done, and which I think makes more sense for them long-term if they decide to go in that option. Right after this word from our sponsors. Brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. You can check out their World Series odds right now. The Padres are the favorite after winning Game 3, a thrilling Game 3 against the Dodgers. They are the favorites at plus 270 to win the World Series right now. The New York Yankees at plus 320. The Mets at plus 550. Phillies plus 750. Gardo's up plus 900. The least favorite right now is the Kansas City Royals at plus 1100. If you're feeling good about those scrappy Royals or those feisty Tigers at plus 1000, go visit FanDuel.com, check out all the odds, and download America's #1 sportsbook. The show is also brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is the best way to get tickets to all the live events that you want to go to, whether it's sports, whether it's a Mavs game you want to go check out, whether it's a Stars game, whether it's a Cowboys game, whether it's a concert, music, theater, no matter what it is, Gametime is the best way to get tickets to any of those events. They've also got Gametime Picks, which filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You can also see your view from your seat, panoramic views in the app before you buy. You know exactly what it's going to look like when you get there. They've also got the Game Time guarantee, the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB to get $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Now, this Rangers team can learn a little bit from their inner city, I guess, inner Metroplex fellow teams. The Stars and the Mavs both have new broadcast deals. They are done with Bally, both going about it in a little bit different ways, neither of them deciding to create their own regional sports network. I think of the teams, if there was going to be one in this market to do it, it would probably be the Rangers. I'm not sure. I would have thought that maybe the Mavs would have taken a run at it in terms of just, the amount of games and the amount of money coming from TV revenue. I think that it's got to be the Rangers because they have 162 games. 162. Maybe you take off 3 to 5 maybe a year because you're only of how many broadcasts that you actually have. So 159 to, 162, however many national games that the Rangers get. They've got a whole lot more broadcasts than the Stars and the Mavericks as well. I think there's just obviously a lot more money in MLB than there is in the NHL. Clearly the 4th most popular league in America right now. So the finances of what it would take to create a regional sports network just of their own, I think that the Rangers are in the best place to do so. But the Mavs went about it a different way. They are going to have all of their broadcasts on Channel 29 locally. They have a deal with Tegna. They will also have 15 games broadcast on WFAA Channel 8 locally. They will also have their broadcasts in multiple different markets across the state. I believe they go as far as Waco. I think they might be in San Antonio and Houston maybe as well. But they are not streaming at this point. I do want to disclose that that Locked On is a subsidiary of Tegna for journalistic and conflict of interest reasons. But I really do think that this is a good deal. Just getting these games into the hands of fans, letting them watch these games for free. Like that is a good thing. Now, the Stars went about it a little differently. They partnered with Victory Plus, a 7-year deal with this Canadian company that is going to be working with their broadcasts. It is all through streaming. There will be 69 of the 82 games that will be on Victory Plus. It will be able to download an app on I believe they have most major streaming devices. They have Roku. I know they just developed their Apple TV app. The Stars Victory Plus, their debut is going to be, I believe, on Thursday. Actually, maybe it'll be their second game. Their season starts on Thursday, so I haven't been able to check out any of the preseason games on there, but I love the idea of that. It's going to be available to everyone that would normally be blacked out through ESPN Plus, which is their MLB TV equivalent. Honestly, ideally, I think Rob Manfred would like for all of these different teams to just be on MLB TV, have it one place, have everyone be able to watch everything and end blackouts. I think that's what every league is going for. But with the Stars doing this, and it's going to be free. All of that's free. You just sign up and you create an account, and then you can watch the games with ads, but for free. You're not going to miss the action. You're going to be able to see it, and they're going to make it available for people. I think that's great. They don't have a TV option like the Mavs do. So maybe eventually those two will work on combining. And it's not just going to be the Stars that are on Victory Plus. There's another NHL team, the Anaheim Ducks, that are partnering with Victory Plus as well. That does not mean that if you're in Dallas, you're going to be able to watch every Anaheim Ducks game. But this is just a type of way that the Rangers, if they decide that it's too much hassle, it's too much, upfront costs, it's too much of a mess to make their own regional sports network. I think both of these are pretty easy ways for pretty repeatable ways for the Rangers to get in on this action. I think I like the idea of an app really, really well. Obviously, there's a lot of people that still have cable, and mainly they have cable for sports. So getting the Rangers available to these homes is huge. I mean, the interest in this team was growing quite a bit coming off of that World Series, and it was still nearly impossible to watch Rangers games on Bally. I think just getting it into the hands of your fans, it's got to be the most important thing for these owners. It's got to be, because it's generating interest in your team. It is one of the biggest ways that they get the revenue. I mean, heck, it feels like almost half of the revenue, maybe a third of a team's revenue, comes from those TV deals, national and local specifically. And baseball is where local matters the most, because they have the most games, and the most games on local only. That is something that is so, so important, is just getting people to be able to watch your product, getting people to care about the Rangers, even just locally in the area, not to mention whatever is going on nationally with all of that, and just getting your finances in order. If this was such a big deal, I don't know how this got to be, so far out that this, spiraled into the huge mess that it was. Maybe some owners saw this coming, longer ago, or maybe they just didn't think it would spiral this quickly into being a flat out catastrophe, to where at this point, I don't know that Bally is going to have any teams in 2 years. I don't know if it's going to exist. I think right now the only MLB team they have, because they kind of surprised everybody of what they did to the Rangers, are saying, oh, actually, we can't pay what we said we'd pay, even though we said we'd pay it. And we had this whole idea of however we're going to go about things. And they just kind of, at the last minute, just kind of just put everybody onto the barrel, saying, whoops, sorry, my bad. We're going to pay you less. And that's all we can pay is less, because that's where we are. And so MLB, by taking over the rights of these three different teams, the Guardians, the Brewers, and the Twins were the ones who also, their agreement with Bally was, at an end at the end of the season. Like the Rangers had, an attempt from Bally to say, hey, we still want to broadcast your games. And the Rangers said, no, this is just too much of a mess to keep getting involved with. This is just not something that's viable for the long term. And it's something that I think Ray Davis is going to put his money where his mouth is. I've criticized him a lot this offseason for not spending big after coming off of a championship. I know that this is such a big part of the TV money is such a big part of their budget, and it being such a mess and so confusing is a big reason why he wasn't willing to commit big dollars to bringing back guys like Jordan Montgomery or bringing in a guy like Josh Hader. I still stand by that they shouldn't have spent big money on any closer. And I look very, very right after Kirby Yates's amazing season for a whopping, I think, $4.5 million is what he signed for. And David Robertson, I think, was making $10 to $12 million this year. So those two combined making, I think, $5 million less than Josh Hader was making this year. But still, this is a big priority. And I think it's going to have big impact on what the Rangers do this winter. Coming up, I'm going to talk about what these different options would look like and how I think it would impact who the Rangers can be in on this offseason. Right after this word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On Rangers is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. It's time to explore those U.S. cities you've always secretly wanted to learn more about. Whether with hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, and so much more on Booking.com, you might just find your perfect stay, even in your baseball rival city during the postseason. Maybe it's time to taste test your baseball stadium's cuisine. Luckily for you, Booking.com can find the perfect stay that is just right for you. Booking.com delivers the exact right stay just for you, and they can help you find a stay that's either close to a home team or a rival team or just some other stadium or no stadium. Because no matter what team you're rooting for this postseason, Booking.com can make you a fan of any U.S. city. From hotels that overlook stadiums to family-friendly resorts to cute bed and breakfast stays, Booking.com has so many different choices across the U.S. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your baseball rivals. Booking.com. Booking.yeah. Now, in terms of how this is going to impact the Rangers, this team has a lot of work to do this offseason. This is a team coming off of a very, very disappointing year in 2024. As the reigning World Series champs, they flopped. They were bad. This was not a good baseball team that has a lot of things that they need to do this offseason. Now, the main area of concern is the bullpen. That's the thing that this team is going to need to not improve from this year, but I mean, I guess also improve from this year. But in free agency, I think this is where the Rangers are going to focus a lot of their efforts. Bringing back Kirby Yates, bringing back David Robertson. I think those are going to be two of the most important things. Also bringing back Nathan Eovaldi. We'll see exactly what his contract will look like. Maybe Jose Leclerc coming back in free agency. But Yates and Robertson were absolutely fantastic for this team this season. They were just amazing. They were so good, and they are going to be, probably more expensive, probably a lot more expensive right now. Projecting out from what Spotrac is saying, $6 million, which I feel like is a little low. Actually, it feels very, very low given the season that Kirby Yates is coming off of. Right now, his projected market value, according to Spotrac, like I said, a 1 year, $6 million deal. That feels a little low based on what he did this year, coming off of the best season of his career. Right now, looking at Jose Leclerc, his market value is listed at a $4.6 million average annual value. A 2 year, $9.2 million deal is about what they are projecting him for. If that was the case, I think I would definitely do that for both of those guys in a heartbeat. Right now, 1 year, $7.1 million for David Robertson, which to me feels kind of crazy. I mean, it feels like that being $1 million more than Kirby Yates, and not to diminish what David Robertson did this season. We'll see if he retires after this year or not. I'm hoping not. I'm hoping that he just comes back to the Rangers. I'm hoping that is what the Rangers do, is just bring back those three guys in the offseason, bring back Nathan Eovaldi. But Robertson, the thing that I love about him, the reason why, if he doesn't retire, I think the Rangers should prioritize him, maybe not over Kirby Yates, but also maybe not over Kirby Yates. The thing that I love about Robertson is how consistent he is. It is such a rare thing in relievers. And Yates was better than Robertson this season. I think he'll be amazing again next year. I think he's just back to the amazing pitcher he was in 2018 and 2019 when he was one of the best relievers in baseball. He was back to it again this year. I'd say the second best reliever in all of baseball, behind only Emmanuel Clase. But Robertson is the king of consistency. You know exactly what you're getting from him. And he's been pretty much the exact same pitcher for the last 5 years. And before the injuries that derailed him in 2020 and I believe 2019 as well, he's just been an incredibly consistent pitcher. He's been in the big leagues for 14 years now. He's got 14 years of service time, I should say. He's been in the big leagues since 2008, so 16 years. But the guy is the king of consistency, which is the rarest of things when it comes to relievers. It's why I was so skeptical about paying Josh Hader $95 million. Why I was skeptical about paying any reliever more than a total value of like 20 million. Honestly, feels like the most I would do for basically any reliever, even Kirby Yates coming off of this incredible year. But he is so consistent. He is the king of knowing exactly what you're going to get. He's going to throw a whole bunch of cutters. He's going to throw some curveballs, got some changeups and a two-seamer as well now. But he is always going to be about around a 3 ERA, It's going to be solid if you need him to close. It's going to be solid if you need him in the 8th or the 7th inning. He is a guy you can rely on to be dependable, which is such a valuable thing with a position that is so volatile in terms of every single reliever in the history of the earth. But the main financial commitment this team is probably going to need to make this offseason is to Nathan Eovaldi. Right now, his market value, assuming that he doesn't take the $20 million player vesting option that he's got, which I don't think he will, he's got his market value rated right now as 2 years, $49.7 million, a nearly $25 million a year for a 2-year deal. His contracts that he's comparable to in this are Zach Wheeler, Sonny Gray, Chris Sale. Now, I don't think he is, he's not quite on the same level as those guys. Wheeler, I think, is one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. Sale's going to win a Cy Young this year. I don't see Eovaldi winning a Cy Young for the rest of his career. Maybe I'm being a little bit, down on Eovaldi. He is going to be 35 next year. He turns 35 at the beginning of next year. But committing 2 years, $50 million total to Eovaldi, I think is a no-brainer. But the thing that this team needs the most is offense. This team needs offensive help. And I don't know where this team's going to spend on hitters this offseason, because the Rangers are going to be trapped in two minds of, okay, well, this team was amazing offensively in 2023. And they went to the World Series. They won the World Series. They had a shorter offseason. They weren't particularly healthy at the beginning of this year. They had big injuries to Evan Carter, to Josh Young. Heck, Corey Seager missed a lot of time, not being himself the first month of the season to the end of the year, where he missed time as well. And for the first time in his big league career, Nathaniel Lowe missed some time as well. And also, Jonah Heim was one of the worst hitters in baseball this year. Adolis Garcia fell off a cliff for the whole middle 4 months of the season. And Wyatt Langford, he wasn't great for the first couple months, and looks like he's going to be much, much better next year. But where would you spend your money on the Rangers if you're looking at hitters this offseason? I mean, sure, I would love to add a Juan Soto. That'd be great. Just add me a Juan Soto, put him in at DH, and then figure out what the heck you're going to do with the rest of your outfield, whether it's Wyatt Langford, Evan Carter in left and center, and Adolis in right, or whether it's Juan Soto in the outfield and Adolis Garcia DHing, whatever it is. That's like the main place where I think the Rangers could add an upgrade offensively. But are they going to spend the money to do that on a hitter? I don't think they will. I think they've got okay depth in the starting rotation, but adding a guy like Eovaldi, I talked about it earlier this week of why he's so important, of having, another guy that if you get to the postseason, which if the Rangers hitters bounce back to being around the middle average of their careers, and you get some positive, regression, some progression from Wyatt Langford, you get more out of Evan Carter next year, you get a healthier and better season from Josh Young, then that is a postseason team, assuming you can fortify the pen and hopefully bring back Nathan Eovaldi. But if you get to the postseason, the Rangers rotation next year, you've got Jacob deGrom starting game 1. Great. You have hopefully Kumar Rocker is healthy and, postseason ready at that point, starting game 2. Great. And then behind that, there's a lot of question marks of which guys you feel confident starting in a postseason game, whether it's Cody Bradford. We'll need to see what he does for a full year. If he can do what he did this year as a starter again next year, I'd say, yeah, absolutely. Start Cody Bradford in a playoff game. Don't think twice about it. John Gray, I don't know how great I would feel about him starting a playoff game next season. If he's looking like, it's the 1 or 2 month stretch of the season where John Gray looks absolutely unhittable, then great. If it's not that, then who knows? Maybe the Rangers will end up bringing back Andrew Heaney. I'm not entirely sure if that's going to be a big priority for them this offseason. He was fine. It was fine. Made $13 million this year. He's projected for a 2-year, $11 million a year deal, $21 million in total next year, according to Spotrac and his calculated market value. I think that's fine. I mean, paying about $11 million for a starting pitcher that is competent, that is going to go out there. And the fact that he's had so many injuries in his career, and last year he was the most durable starter the Rangers had, it's kind of mystifying and a huge feather in his cap, a huge thing that really helped this team. I mean, he wasn't as amazing as we've seen him at points in his career, but he was so consistent when everybody else, literally everybody else in this rotation, spent time on the IL this year. Well, I guess Jack Leiter didn't, but we're talking about the major league rotation. Everybody else at a camp spent time on the IL. John Gray, Dane Dunning, Max Scherzer, Jacob deGrom, Tyler Mahle, Cody Bradford. All of those guys spent time on the IL, and Andrew Heaney didn't. And so the Rangers are going to have to spend, unfortunately, again this offseason. Now, if the Rangers get the kind of performances they're hoping from out of Leiter, out of Bradford, out of Rocker, and having 3 out of your 5 guys in your rotation as competent homegrown starters, that's a huge deal because starting pitchers are freaking expensive. I was just talking about Andrew Heaney, who is a fine back end of the rotation guy making $11 million a year. That's how expensive they are. A top end guy who not even like a Cy Young contender, maybe he'll be an all-star next year, Nathan Eovaldi, making $25 million a year. Those starting pitchers are expensive. That's why the Rangers have such a focus. It's such an importance for them to get young, homegrown, competent to very, very good homegrown starting pitching in Leiter, Rocker, and Bradford. Those guys are going to be huge, huge keys for the Rangers next year, especially if they can't spend on free agent starting pitching this offseason. And if they can't spend on that, and they can't spend on the bullpen, and they can't spend on Juan Soto or whatever offensive upgrade for next year, that's going to put them in a weird, weird place. This might just hopefully be one more offseason, I should say, of financial uncertainty. But the Rangers need to figure out what they're doing with their TV situation next year, and they need to figure it out fast. They cannot afford to wait around. They cannot afford for them to be there in the offseason in November saying, well, we don't really know how much money we're going to spend. We don't know how, viable this whatever TV option is going to be, how much money it's actually going to make. We don't really know exactly what we're going to spend. Those meetings are happening right now between Chris Young and between Ray Davis, between ownership and the front office, saying, all right, we need to figure out this budget. We need to figure out what we can prioritize, how much we can spend, who we should prioritize with the money that we have available. And if this is going to be a long-term thing, if this is just going to be an off season where, you know what, sometimes as an owner, you got to just eat some cash. Sometimes you got to lose money. You got to spend money to make money. And I think that not spending money again this offseason, it'd be a bad sign for Texas to make it, difficult for them to keep that reputation of Chris Young being a guy who can go out and sign just about anybody. I think that is one of the things that made him such a good GM, such a good front office member, is being able to convince those guys to sign here. The Simeons, the Segers, the deGroms, the Eovaldis. That was what made Chris Young so freaking good at his job, along with a multitude of other things. But this is a fascinating story that is by no means done. It's going to have a huge, huge impact on the Rangers, specifically this offseason, moving forward, and how we are going to get them in our lives for next year. Who knows at this point? All we do know is that RIP Bally and the Rangers and their relationship. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.